Okay, so now we will discuss a little bit about the variables because this is very important in quantitative methodologies. Once we collect the data from a survey, or even if you use the data from a database that already exists, you will need to understand the type of variables that you have because based on that is the type of analysis that you will end up doing and also the type of coding that you need to do even before the analysis. So I think this section of the lecture is very important because it's key that you understand the different types of variables and how to handle them and all of these things. We'll also practice when we actually do the analysis because it's in SPSS we will need to fix this. But I think this explanation is very important. So first we have two types of variables, and again, maybe I'm jumping ahead because maybe I didn't explain what a variable is, but the variable is the actual number or the quantification of the concept. So the variable is the data that you created in your survey. Very important. It is very probable that it's very it might be the case that the variable that you created is constructed by different indicators. You remember the indicators are what you ask. So maybe one variable is constructed is not one to one because that could be risky. So maybe we have 5 different indicators that construct one variable. So also keep that in mind. Variables can appear in different shapes, can appear in different ways, but that is the variable, the quantification of the concept, and is generally constructed by indicators. So first we have two types of variables that I would like to put them together because they are very similar, ratio and interval variables. And this type of variables, the ratio or interval variables, are variables that where the difference between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4 is exactly the same. So if, for example, 1 meter and 2 meters, the distance between 1 and 2 and 3 is exactly the same. So sometimes we also call these variables scale variables because they are like 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meters. It's exactly the same difference. It's a scale, always the same. Another example can be age. Age is also 25 years, 26 years, 27 years. This difference between 27 and 28 is exactly the same. So these ratio or interval variables, maybe we can, if we combine them into a new concept, it's called a scale variable. So I will treat these two together. In the analysis, we will work them together. These two variables, the difference between ratio and interval is that uh, in in ratio variables, the zero actually means a lack of something. For example, if you have 0 years, it means there are no years. If you have 0 meters, that means there is no meters. If you have -1, it means you have less than 0 and stuff like that. But in interval variables, that doesn't mean anything. And I think a good example is with the temperature. If you have 0 degrees, that doesn't mean that there is no temperature on, or if you have zero Fahrenheit, it doesn't mean that you have like not there is a lack of that. There is actually temperature, it's just that it's measuring 0. So, but don't worry that much between the difference of ratio and interval. Just make sure that you understand that the scale variable is something that is the same size from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 and so on. Because now in the next type of variable, maybe that will be clearer. Because in the next one, we call them ordinal variables or also rank variables. These ordinal variables only show which comes first or higher than the other. So for example, in a race, the first place and the second place and the third place, it doesn't mean that the distance between third and second, second and third is the same. It could be like first came like this and second very close and third very far. So these ordinal or ranking variables are like that. First is just first. It doesn't matter how far from the other. The second then maybe closer or farther. It doesn't really tell you anything. It just says first, second, and third. So it's important to know this. We will discuss in the analysis, but it's important that you know this even from when you collect the data. And finally, we have another very important type of variable that is called nominal or categorical variable. These types of variables are variables that do not really tell you anything. If one is more than zero or if two is more than one, no. The only thing that these variables tell you is that one is different from two and different from zero. That is the only thing that a categorical variable will tell you. For example, maybe uh, we want to understand gender, and then we have one for male, zero for female, and two for I don't want to disclose. So the difference between all of this is not it doesn't tell you that one is less than two. It only tells you that it is different, and that's it. Another important thing to discuss about variables is that we also have discrete and continuous variables. Discrete variables are variables that are measured only in with integers, that we don't have anything, we don't have a decimal in there. So probably ordinal variables are also discrete variables, right? So we will have first place, second place, but we will not have 1.5. And continuous variable is different. Usually scale variables like ratio and interval can have decimals. So for example, the height like 1.74, 1.8. You can have decimals in between. So it's also important to know that. And finally, we also have something that is very useful. We have dichotomous or dummy variables. So dichotomous variables are variables that can only have one, I mean like two values, or generally we try to code them as one or zero. So for example, are you alive? Yes or no? And that's a funny thing, but maybe alive is one, zero, dead is zero. So that variable could only be one and zero. That's why it's called dichotomous, because there are only two options. And we also have dummies, which are dichotomous variables that we try to code with one and zero. One possibility is with gender. Historically, we have had male one, female zero, but now what we are doing now is maybe to say female one, anything else zero. So we will learn this in the analysis, but it's important that you understand how variables behave and what type of variables exist.